Hello aspirants, welcome to LaEx Learnings. Recently, 5th meeting of United Nations Intergovernmental Negotiation Committee was held in Busan. But the talks were failed to arrive at common consensus with respect to legal binding treaty of global plastic treaty. So in this context, we will discuss what is global plastic treaty and also why the talks were failed in Busan and also the India's stand about the recent talks. So let us begin. Firstly, Global Plastic Treaty. In 2022, all UN members passed a resolution 5/14 to arrive at a legal binding treaty. Legal binding treaty with respect to curbing plastic pollution in the world. To arrive at legal binding treaty, till now, 5 meetings were held. Recently, 5th meeting of United Nations Intergovernmental Negotiation Committee was held in Busan. This was considered as a final negotiation, but talks are failed to arrive at a common consensus. Why the talks were failed in Busan? That is the major important thing we are discussing here. Major issues arrived in Busan from different countries. First, with respect to curb plastic production, especially developed countries and other major Pacific island nations, some of the countries of Africa, for example Rwanda, were pushed the idea of curbing virgin polymer plastic. Virgin polymer plastic. What is virgin polymer plastic? It is a plastic produced by the raw materials of petroleum products. So because of this, many Gulf countries opposed this ban on the production of the virgin polymer plastic. Secondly, with respect to scope, developed countries were pushing the idea of full life cycle of plastic. Means treaty should include about the management of full life cycle of plastic. Full life cycle plastic includes production, consumption and also management, means waste management. But countries like India and other major developing nations were opposed this idea of full life cycle management of plastic. They said that the treaty should be restricted to waste management or pollution management of plastic waste. And also there were the differences about the targets set by the targets were discussed in the Busan. Developed countries were pushing the idea of elimination of or curbing the production of single-use plastics on year-wise. But developing countries, including India, opposed this targets because developing countries argued that this cut in the production of single-use plastics will hinder the national growth or national development. So developed countries should not set the targets to reduce the single-use plastics considerably, so it shouldn't hit the development of the developing countries. And with respect to hazardous chemicals, these hazardous chemicals are being used in the production of plastics, right? Developed countries and other Pacific island nations were arguing that there should be ban on hazardous chemicals which are being used in the plastic production. But major developing countries state that there should be a scientific study with respect to these hazardous chemicals. Unless and until there is no scientific studies about the hazardous chemicals, there should not be ban against them. These were the major issues arised between the different countries at Busan. But what are the views of India, and what is the position of India with respect to global treaty of plastic? So we'll look those aspects. But before that, we'll look the stats, some of the stats with respect to India's plastic pollution. India is the largest plastic polluter in the world. Means 20% of the plastic pollution in the world comes from India. Means about 1/5 of the plastic production, means plastic pollution comes from India only. And India is one of the leading producer of virgin polymer plastics. India produce virgin polymer plastic. Because of this, India is against the ban of the virgin polymer plastic production. So now what are the stands about plastic pollution which were discussed in the Busan? So this we will discuss. India's stand. First one is that India opposed the ban on virgin polymer plastic production. India says that this goes against beyond the 2022 resolution. 2022 resolution means India said that any legal binding, if treaty comes out, this should not go beyond the 2022 resolution. And also said that India come up with a principle called principle of national circumstances and capabilities. This principle is based on the common but differentiated responsibility. Here India says that if there is a treaty, there should be a different approach toward different nations. Means developed countries should have a more responsibility and developing countries should be given lesser responsibility. And the developing countries should be allowed to develop their economies progressively. And with respect to hazardous chemicals, India also highlighted the scientific study. It was the idea of India to push for scientific studies about hazardous chemicals. And India fourthly said that there should be a funding and technology transfer from developed countries to the developing countries to tackle the plastic pollution, to wipe out the single-use plastics from their economies. Fifthly, India said that there should not be any overlap with other mandates of the other global treaties. For example, Basel Convention, Rotterdam Convention, Stockholm Convention. India says that there should not be overlap between these conventions and also the global plastic treaty. And India also says that there should not be overlap of the mandate of the other international organization, for example WTO, right, which hinders the national development and also national growth. This was the ideas put forward by the India at Busan, right? But what should be the way forward, right? Plastic pollution is dangerous, very dangerous, killing a lot of humans and threatening biodiversity and creating marine pollution. So in this context, we should aware that there should be a global consensus, right, to end the plastic pollution. One says that global consensus should be based on that common but differentiated responsibility. And immediate legal binding should be our waste management, means plastic pollution waste management. After that, we can think about the legal binding to cut down the plastic production in the long term. These can be considered to end the plastic production and also plastic pollution. Thanks for watching the video. Stay tuned for more videos.